The Forgotten Colony. The sky above Meridian was never truly dark. 3 moons cast a perpetual twilight across the settlement's metal and stone structures, painting the landscape in ghostly blues and silvers. For 200 years, the colony had survived on this frontier world. Isolated, forgotten, but unbroken. They were the descendants of the exploration vessel Pathfinder, whose catastrophic engine failure had stranded the original colonists far beyond charted space. Ilara Reeve stood on the ridge overlooking the colony's main hub, her dark hair whipping across her face in the evening wind. At 26, she was Meridian's youngest head engineer, responsible for maintaining the aging systems that kept their isolated world habitable. In her hands, she held the signal amplifier she'd been working on for months, a desperate attempt to reach farther into the void than any previous generation had managed. Still chasing ghosts. The voice belonged to Administrator Dawson, who approached with the careful steps of a man who'd seen 70 hard years. Your grandfather tried the same thing. And his father before him. Ilara didn't look up from her calibrations. They didn't have my designs. Earth abandoned us, child. They either think we're dead or they've forgotten us completely. Maybe, Ilara conceded, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. The administrator sighed, his weathered face creasing with familiar worry. The council wants your talents focused on the hydroponics failures in Section 4. People need to eat more than they need to send messages no one will hear. Ilara finally looked up. I'll fix the hydroponics tomorrow. Tonight. I need the dish. Dawson didn't approve, but he'd known Ilara since she was a stubborn child building transmitters from scraps. He merely nodded and left her to her work. What neither of them knew was that tonight would be different from all the nights that came before. The signal came 3 hours later, not from Earth, but from somewhere much closer. Ilara's equipment, designed to transmit, suddenly received instead a pulsing, rhythmic pattern that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. It wasn't random noise. It was language. It was intent. By morning, Meridian's skies changed. Dark ships, angular and predatory, descended through the atmosphere. They moved with precision, surrounding the colony before most citizens had even awakened. When the first shuttles landed in the central plaza, Ilara was already there, having run all night to warn the council. They called themselves the Vexteri. Tall, exoskeletal beings with 4 arms and eyes that glowed amber in elongated faces. Their translator devices rendered their speech into flat, emotionless Standard English, a language they'd clearly studied. Your presence is unauthorized, their commander stated to the hastily assembled council. This sector belongs to the Vexteri expansion. You will be processed and relocated. Administrator Dawson stood straighter than Ilara had ever seen him. We've been here for 7 generations. This is our home. The Vexteri commander's head tilted slightly. Irrelevant. The expansion requires this world. You have 1 planetary rotation to prepare for evacuation. Those who resist will be eliminated. The aliens returned to their ships, leaving behind smaller craft and armed patrols. The message was clear. They were being watched, and resistance would not be tolerated. In the emergency council session that followed, panic threatened to overwhelm reason. We can't fight them. Security Chief Voss argued. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Did you see those ships? Those weapons? And where exactly would they relocate us? Demanded Dr. Emery, the colony's chief medical officer. Processing sounds like a euphemism for something much worse. Ilara listened from the back of the chamber, her mind racing. While the council argued, she slipped away. If there was any hope, it wouldn't come from debate. It would come from action. The colony archives were housed in the oldest building in Meridian, a reinforced bunker from the original landing. Few people visited anymore. History held little interest for a population focused on daily survival. But Ilara knew that sometimes the past held answers the present had forgotten. The original colonists had been explorers, yes, but the Pathfinder had also carried a military contingent, standard procedure for all long-range missions, and military equipment didn't always appear on standard inventory lists, especially if it was classified. Hours later, buried in dusty records and technical manuals, Ilara found what she was looking for. According to a commander's personal log, a cache of advanced weapons and communications equipment had been hidden beneath the southern ridge. Emergency supplies never meant to be used except in dire circumstances. If anyone ever finds this record, the long-dead commander had written, "Remember that Earth protects its own. Always." Night had fallen by the time Ilara reached the hidden entrance described in the logs. The Vexteri patrols were concentrated around the colony center, making it relatively easy for her to slip away unnoticed. The entrance was concealed beneath layers of native vegetation, but the recognition panel still glowed faintly when she cleared away the growth. The bunker was sealed with a biometric lock keyed to human DNA. The Vexteri couldn't have opened it even if they'd found it. Inside, preserved by environmental systems designed to last centuries, was humanity's insurance policy. Weapons racks lined one wall. Pulse rifles, tactical armor, even a few heavy ordnance launchers. But what caught Ilara's attention was the communications array in the center of the room. Unlike the colony's cobbled-together systems, this was pure Earth military tech, designed to punch signals through anything, including whatever might be jamming conventional transmissions. By dawn, Ilara had assembled a small group of trusted friends and shown them the bunker. Together, they formulated a plan. They couldn't defeat the Vexteri fleet, but they could buy time. And most importantly, they could send a message. Even if Earth receives it, they might not come, warned Thomas, Ilara's childhood friend and now a colony defense officer. "We've been gone for 2 centuries. Ilara loaded a pulse rifle with practiced ease, surprising everyone. She'd spent the night studying the weapon manuals. "My grandfather used to tell me stories," she said, "about Earth, about who we really were before we got stranded here. He said humans never abandon their own. He said that when pushed, humanity doesn't just fight back. They bring the storm." "Stories," Thomas said gently. "Maybe," Ilara acknowledged. "But right now, stories are all we have." The Vexteri came at midday, shuttles descending to begin the processing. They weren't expecting resistance. They certainly weren't expecting the precisely aimed heavy ordnance that brought down their lead shuttle in a spectacular fireball. The battle for Meridian had begun. Ilara and her small force, armed with weapons 2 centuries advanced beyond anything the colony had previously possessed, struck from hidden positions around the colony perimeter. They couldn't win. The Vexteri forces were too numerous, their ships too powerful, but they created the distraction needed for Ilara's real plan. Deep in the hidden bunker, the military-grade transmitter hummed to life. Ilara had loaded it with every scrap of data about their situation, about Meridian, about the 7 generations who had survived against all odds. And at the end, a simple message. "This is Meridian Colony, descendants of the EV Pathfinder. We are under attack. If anyone from Earth can hear this, we're still here. We've always been here, and we need you to come home." The signal blasted outward, designed to cut through any attempt at jamming. As Ilara emerged from the bunker, pulse rifle in hand, she looked up at the sky. The Vexteri ships had begun orbital bombardment of the areas where resistance was strongest. Her friends were dying. Her home was burning. But the message was away. Now, all they could do was survive long enough to see if anyone was listening. The reckoning. 3 weeks after the Vexteri invasion began, Meridian was barely holding on. The colony's main structures remained under alien control, while Ilara and the remaining fighters conducted guerrilla operations from the wilderness and underground tunnels. Their advanced weapons had surprised the invaders, but superior numbers were slowly overwhelming them. Ilara hadn't slept in 36 hours. A wound on her shoulder, sealed with medical foam from the bunker's supplies, throbbed constantly. Beside her in the hidden cave that now served as their command center, Thomas studied their dwindling ammunition supplies. "We've got maybe 3 more days of fighting left in us," he said quietly. Ilara nodded. They'd known from the start they couldn't win, only delay the inevitable. Every day they held out was another day for their message to travel, another day for someone to hear. Administrator Dawson says the Vexteri have started processing civilians in the Central District, reported Kira, their youngest fighter. Her face was streaked with dirt and blood that wasn't her own. "They're loading them onto transport ships." Ilara closed her eyes briefly. "We hit the processing center tonight. One last big strike." "That's suicide," Thomas protested. "Probably," she admitted. "But I'd rather die fighting than be processed." The attack was planned for midnight, when most of the Vexteri would be operating with reduced efficiency according to the patterns they'd observed. They would use their last heavy ordnance, create maximum chaos, and free as many colonists as possible. What they didn't expect was for the sky to change first. It began with a disturbance in the upper atmosphere, a ripple effect visible even from the ground. The Vexteri noticed it too. Their patrols suddenly mobilized, and their ships began repositioning in defensive formations. "What is that?" Kira whispered, pointing to the swirling disturbance above. Before anyone could answer, the darkness of space seemed to tear open. A massive ship, no, multiple ships, emerged from what could only be a jump point. They dwarfed the Vexteri vessels, sleek and predatory, with the unmistakable angular designs of human engineering. "Earth," Ilara breathed, hardly daring to believe it. The voice that came over every communication device on the planet, Vexteri and human alike, was calm, measured, and carried an undercurrent of controlled fury. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of the Earth Defense Fleet Dreadnought Retribution. We are responding to a distress call from Meridian Colony. Vexteri forces, you are engaged in hostile action against citizens of Earth. Stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Vexteri fleet opened fire, a futile gesture against ships that outclassed them in every way. The Earth fleet's response was swift and overwhelming. Point defense systems intercepted incoming fire while their own weapons lanced through Vexteri shields like they were tissue paper. On the colony's surface, the invaders panicked. Some ran for their shuttles, while others dug in, taking colonists as hostages. Ilara's group watched in awe as smaller craft detached from the Earth ships and streaked toward the surface, dropships carrying troops. "They came," Thomas said, disbelief evident in his voice. "They really came." Ilara was already moving, gathering her weapons. "And they'll need ground support. They don't know the colony like we do." The Earth Marines were unlike anything Meridian had ever seen. Their combat suits made them look more machine than human, moving with precision and deploying weapons that made the bunker's arsenal look primitive by comparison. When Ilara's group made contact with a Marine squad, their commander's helmet retracted to reveal a woman's face, brown eyes sharp with tactical assessment. "Lieutenant Santos," she introduced herself. "You're the locals." Ilara nodded. "Ilara Reeve, engineer. We're what's left of the resistance." Santos didn't waste time on pleasantries. "We need intel on hostage locations and Vexteri strongpoints." The joint operation moved through the colony with ruthless efficiency. Earth's forces brought overwhelming technological superiority, while Ilara's fighters provided crucial local knowledge. Within hours, most of the colony was secure, the Vexteri either neutralized or in retreat. The final standoff came at the processing center, where the alien commander had barricaded himself with the last group of colonist hostages. Lieutenant Santos's squad and Ilara's fighters approached from different angles, coordinating through comms now linked to Earth tactical networks. "We need a way to disable their shield generator without endangering the hostages," Santos said, studying the building's layout on her tactical display. Ilara pointed to a maintenance tunnel their team had used for previous raids. "I can get under the building and disable their power core. Give me 5 minutes." Santos looked skeptical. "Those tunnels will be guarded." "Not these ones." Ilara replied with a grim smile. We collapsed the main entrance weeks ago. They think they're unusable. The lieutenant studied her for a moment, then nodded. 5 minutes. Then we breach, with or without you. The tunnels were tight and dark, designed for maintenance drones rather than humans. Ilara moved silently, counting steps and turns until she reached the access point beneath the processing center's power core. Above her, she could hear the hum of Vexteri technology and the occasional barked order in their clicking language. The power coupling was exactly where she expected. The Vexteri had simply adapted human infrastructure rather than replacing it. With practiced hands, she bypassed the security and planted the small explosive charge she'd been saving. Not enough to cause a catastrophic failure, just enough to disrupt the shields and trigger emergency protocols. 4 minutes and 30 seconds after entering the tunnel, Ilara was clear. Now, she said into her comm. The resulting breach was textbook perfection. As the shield failed, Marines burst through every entrance, neutralizing Vexteri guards before they could harm hostages. The alien commander was captured alive, a diplomatic prize that would prove valuable in the coming days. When the fighting stopped, Ilara found herself standing in the colony's central plaza, watching Earth shuttles landing with medical teams and supplies. Earth had not just sent warriors, they had sent aid, technology, and the promise of reconnection. A dropship larger than the others descended, landing with precision in the cleared area. When its ramp lowered, a woman in a commander's uniform walked out, flanked by officers. Her bearing spoke of authority earned through years of command. This had to be Rise, the voice that had announced humanity's return. Administrator Dawson, looking shell-shocked but dignified, stepped forward to meet her. Commander, on behalf of Meridian Colony, Rise didn't let him finish. Instead, she did something unexpected. She saluted him, a formal, military acknowledgement of respect. Administrator, on behalf of Earth and all her colonies, I apologize for how long it took us to find you. The formality broke as medical teams rushed to treat the injured and reunions happened all around the plaza. Ilara stood back, watching it all, until Lieutenant Santos approached with Commander Reyes. This is her, Santos said, the one who sent the signal and led the resistance. Reyes extended her hand. Engineer Reeve, your signal saved this colony. When we received it, a human voice from a sector we thought uninhabited, it triggered every protocol we have for lost colonies. Ilara shook the offered hand. How did you get here so quickly? We're beyond charted space. Not anymore, Reyes said with a slight smile. The technology that stranded your ancestors has evolved. Jump drive technology can cross vast distances now. Once we had your coordinates, it was just a matter of assembling the fleet. Why so many ships for one colony? Thomas asked, joining them. Reyes's expression hardened. Because humanity has learned some hard lessons in the 2 centuries since the Pathfinder was lost. We don't leave our people vulnerable anymore, and we make examples of those who harm what's ours. In the days that followed, as Meridian began to rebuild, news came from orbit. The Vexteri expansion had sued for peace after a single decisive battle with Earth's fleet. Representatives were coming to negotiate reparations and formal recognition of human territorial claims. 1 week after the liberation, Ilara stood on the same ridge where she had worked on her signal amplifier. Beside her was Commander Reyes, looking out over the recovering colony. We thought you'd forgotten us, Ilara admitted, or that Earth itself might be gone. Reyes shook her head. Humanity doesn't forget its own. Your ancestors' ship disappeared without a trace. We searched for decades. There are still descendants of the original Pathfinder crew who serve in the fleet, carrying their family names and the hope of finding answers. And now they have them. Yes. Reyes turned to face her fully. The question is, what happens to Meridian now? Earth can relocate your people, integrate you back into the wider human sphere. Ilara looked over her home. Damaged but standing, changed forever by contact with both enemy and kin. This is our home, she said firmly. but I think it's time we rejoin the family." Commander Reyes nodded, understanding in her eyes. Then Meridian will become what it always should have been. Not a lost colony, but humanity's frontier. Above them, the stars were no longer distant and unreachable. They were highways, connections to a humanity that had not forgotten its scattered children. And among those stars, word was spreading quickly about what happened when you threatened those under Earth's protection. The Vexteri had learned what Ilara's grandfather had always known. When pushed too far, humanity doesn't just fight back. They bring the storm.